Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Gauthier. I wanted to introduce the Archangel course. As many of you are aware, I have channeled since 2010 professionally, been channeling for multiple years. I've gone through an experience of growing with my guides, and I first started off with extraterrestrial being named Treb, and Metatron is an archangel consciousness that came later. I first channeled Treb, and then I connected with his guide Aridif, and then I connected with a lot of other beings. But sometime around 2015, I picked up on Metatron's energy, and I started working with him. The archangel consciousness is something that's very different from the ET energy. Now, what is an archangel? This is a very important part of the entire course. And as we go through the course, I'm going to be working not just with Metatron, but I'm going to work with Metatron, Michael, Uriel, and Raphael. So these four archangels are a big part of the course. Aridif, one of my main guides that I work with who's an ET, had a very good way to explain this, and he will be sharing some more information with kind of the archetype and the energy and the way it works and how it's set up. But the energy for archangels is not just this biblical idea of God's special messengers. In some ways, it actually relates very deeply to the whole concept of the special messenger or, a creative level being. But the way archangel consciousnesses work is very different. So you have all of these ET beings that are physically in bodies, but they're in higher dimensions. And that would be like the fourth density or fifth dimension, the sixth density or seventh dimension, the fifth density or sixth dimension. And these are all physically incarnating beings. But we also have the version of the universe that we're in right now. And we are in a fourth, I believe, or fifth matrix. We're up on a different level of the universe. So the first layer is nothing, like all dead things, like only elements. And then the next layer above that is kind of complex life, and the next layer above that. And we're not just talking about the Earth, we're talking about the whole universe. Like the whole universe has these multiple layers. So sometimes when we're using words dimension, density, or matrix, they kind of all get exchanged, or some will mean something with one channeler or teacher and another with another. But the way that Aridif and Treb have always described, a density is evolution, and an evolution of a soul. A dimension is the physical time, space, and the physical construction. But the matrix are these 12 different versions of our universe, and at the very beginning having just elements, and up where we're at having more complex humans. The higher you go, you have these beings who are just vastly more large with their consciousness than we are. So Aridif, he's a sixth density being. He's at the very last place of physical reality in our matrix. And he embodies like 90% of his total consciousness in his body. And the other 10% is like the higher self. Where humans were like 15% in the body. And, the other 85% is our higher self. So there's quite a difference with the energy level of consciousness with Aridif. And you can tell that with the way he shares, the type of information that he has access to. So it's just way, way bigger. Now, when you get up to this archangel layer of consciousness, we're not talking about just, a difference between 15% to 90%. We're actually talking about there's only like 12 or 13 beings that live on all of the earth. And these beings have all the consciousness of every human, every Kanki, which was the first incarnation cycle, every Lumerian, every Lumanian, every Atlantean, every Earth reptilian, every other higher dimensional being that's been here on Earth before and that will come in the future. So even future humans, as we evolve into fifth and sixth density beings, it's like these 12 different beings have the total consciousness of everything that's ever lived there. And it's very unique. Like that top layer is described as next to source energy. Like even the grass or the little bugs have direct access to source energy. where we're very disconnected in the matrix where we're at, and I can't remember if it's the fourth or fifth or sixth matrix. It's somewhere in the lower middle. And we have enough consciousness to connect. So these beings are just huge. They describe it as like billions of human beings is just a small part of their total consciousness, because we have to remember humans throughout history and what humans will be in the future, where we might have a planet with 30 billion people on it or 100 billion people on it. And they are a part of all of that. So our consciousness, when we add it all up, and all the incarnation cycles, every life that's ever been lived on Earth, that's their total energy. So their consciousness is huge. Now, what do they do with that consciousness, right? So they describe themselves as a creative layer of creation. So you hear like biblical terms or the Veda text or, any ancient religion that you have, even up to more modern Christian religions, which borrow heavily from the older religions. They're talking about there was sound and then there was light. There was creation from sound. So these beings are actually at a layer of reality where everything that we do, they take that energy and then they create the environment around us. So let's say if you're looking like physical reality as a video game, and we're in a matrix of that video game, the Archangel consciousness would be like a developer. So whatever we're doing here, they're rendering reality around us. They're actually creating the physical stuff that we're around. And this is why they know such huge amounts of information about sacred geometry, about consciousness, about life, about the experience of being a human. And they're also very earth-based. And this is something that's very different from what I normally do. My nickname is the ET Whisperer. I'm used to working with extraterrestrial consciousness. I've channeled probably over 1,000 ET beings since I've started channeling. Mostly Treb and Aridif, I channel them and then they connect to these beings. But with Metatron and these other ET consciousnesses that I have channeled has taught me how to connect with the Archangel consciousness of Metatron. So Metatron's energy I've directly been able to connect with and channel. And these other beings, I've channeled Michael once or twice through Aridif. Aridif helped bring a piece of that consciousness in. I've channeled Metatron directly. I've channeled Uriel a few times, and I think Raphael maybe once or never. I can't remember, to be honest. I've channeled so many different types of consciousnesses, but they've also always come through Treb and Aridif. Treb and Aridif are my little operators. They help me connect all these energies. And this is going to be unique because I'm going to channel Metatron, and I'm going to work to directly connect with these beings, which I've never done before. And if I can't, Treb and Aridif can bring through some. But also the intensity of the energy. When you have consciousnesses of hundreds of billions of beings in just one of these beings' consciousness, and they're at a creative level, they literally say that every part of us as humans is a small part of them, and that a small part of them is embedded within all of us. So literally, it's like a godlike entity. It's like a power of a god. It's a creative force that takes our free will and our actions and then creates around them. They do weather patterns. They do all sorts of dynamics that they help create after we tell them what to create. We tell them what to create with our actions and our words and our thoughts and our beliefs and our individual experiences. And then as a collective, they just read the collective energy and create around us. So it's a very intense energy. Metatron is the only being I've ever channeled where the environment around me has physically changed when I'm channeling him. The very first time I channeled him, outside of my own private playtime of channeling, I channeled for Ruben Langdon. And some of you might know him. He did a show on Gaia TV called Interview with Extra Dimensionals. A lot of you may have found me from that show. When I channeled Metatron, him and my ex-wife Kalina were both there. They both described how this very quiet day, no wind, lots of clouds, as soon as I started breathing in Metatron, the last couple breaths, The wind picked up, the clouds dispersed, little insects came flying around, birds started chirping and making noises from the trees. The literal whole environment changed. And since I've started channeling Metatron, every time I channel him, something in my life explodes. Something in my life gets pushed down a pathway that I have been trying to work on. I'm a human, right? So my life can be messy, it can be rough, it can be difficult. And I also have connections to my family, my children and my then wife. And all of these emotions I had connected with them. When I had desires to do different things with my channeling, I wanted to travel, I wanted to be able to share my channeling in a different way, in a more intense way. And I wanted my circumstances in life to change. I wanted better experiences for my family. We were living in a bad neighborhood. And I channeled Metatron after not channeling him for almost 2 years, maybe even more, I think 3 or 4 years. And as soon as I channeled him, we had a flood in our apartment, which helped us move to a better place. After that, I hadn't channeled Metatron for about 2 years. I channeled him and I had my first invite to a event in Sedona where I was able to come out, and I worked with a whole bunch of other great channelers and presenters. And then that just kept pushing forward. And every time I channeled Metatron, something different happened. I started channeling Metatron while I was out and about starting to do events. I was doing 3 events a year, maybe 4 events a year. And I started channeling Metatron, and then I started going out to Japan and started going out to Spain. So literally every time I wanted to kind of pivot and change something in my life, I started channeling Metatron. The energy pushed me through that door. And there's no greater testament to these beings' energies than what I've experienced with it myself. Now, working with these archangel consciousnesses, they are going to help us with a lot of this stuff. They're going to share the energies of them. You hear about archangels do certain tasks or certain jobs. Well, they all do all the jobs, right? All of them do everything. Some of them are more specified in what they specialize in. For instance, Metatron has a specialty with helping humans find the center, and that's the aspect of Metatron that mostly I've worked with. There's also the geometric versions of Metatron. There's also the mathematical versions of Metatron. There's also just life in general being more expansive version of Metatron. And I've worked with all of that type of energy just by working with one aspect. And that's the beautiful thing, because archangels are part of us. They actually are creative. And when we tap into our intention and tap into our desire to connect with their energy, it helps us push even more. So this is what the course is about. This is what we're doing with the course. And I invite you to join the other archangels as we go through this course, connect personally with their energy. I'm hoping that they'll all share different techniques that will help us and our energy learn to connect with them more and learn how to call on them and use that energy. And definitely Aridif will be sharing his own perspective about the mechanics behind that matrix and what the archangels do. I explained it a little bit, but as some of you who know me, the consciousness behind Aridif is very specific and very good at teaching us how the mechanics behind the consciousness work, how the universe works behind the scenes, like the cogs and wheels of consciousness. Aridif's really good about sharing that. So I hope you guys enjoy the Archangel course. I'm Rob Gauthier. I love you, and I appreciate you guys for being here with me. Thank you so much.